Well, now I want to go to Bob Davidson for his workshop tips and tricks and tools and website and a little bit of everything. Bob, welcome.
A little bit, it's a melange of information here. Let's get this going. So, welcome to Workshop Tips and Tricks, week 15. Unbelievable. Time flies when you're having fun. Again, I'm Bob Davidson, exhibit designer. Worked in theater for a long time. Now do a lot of exhibits for trade shows and museums and design graphics, etc. Tonight, our topic is let's get jiggy, templates and jigs. And really, I could spend a month on this. This is just going to be some basic ideas and concepts, and maybe you'll get some ideas. And if anyone would like to get into anything a little in more depth, please just email me and we can start a conversation. I'm also trying to, everything you see tonight, I've tried to do so that you don't need to have a milling machine or a, vertical mill or a drill press or whatever. These are all kind of handmade, hand-cut stuff. So we'll keep it to that. So why are we going to do a jig or a template? Well, repetitive operations. So if you need 20 of one thing, or you need to drill holes in 50 pieces and you want them all to be in the same place, or marking out something, or assembling. So that's why we do these. Also, you'll get a record for future duplication. One of the things I always recommend is that you make one extra. If you need 10, make 11 or 12. And then the real reason here is so that you have accuracy from piece to piece, so that the first piece you make is the same size and shape as the last piece that you make. So we'll start with templates. A template is a shaped piece of metal, wood, card, plastic, or any other material that you use as a pattern. And that's for processes just such as painting, cutting out, shaping, or drilling. Templates really aren't involved so much with assembly. It's for making the parts that we need so that we can assemble stuff. A template can be as simple as ready-made, these plastic drafting templates. You have an accurate, circle templates or arc templates, ellipses, squares and shapes and hexagons, etc. All available. You can actually find these in the dollar stores and, certainly in the office supply places. And they'll help you with your initial layout. So I do recommend that you look into those. And there are some specialty ones out there, and any shapes that you find, they're great. It's great to have. You can make your own templates. So this is a little example of a door, a series of interior doors. This is something I saw on the web. So they worked from a prototype. So this is kind of the steps of assembling the door, model. But the templates would be this layer here, and then this backing layer here that actually allows you to have the look that it's a molded door panel. So you would cut out a template, and one of the things I talk about is that you want to use material that's dissimilar from what you're going to be making your finished piece in. So if you're going to be building in wood, I would recommend that your template is made from styrene or ABS or some harder material that will be a little less forgiving when you're gluing or whatever. So you don't want to get glue on this stuff. So you would, trace out your prototype. We start with a prototype, you trace it out, and then cut your template out. So now once you have this, you can trace out from the template. Always return to the template because of cumulative offset. We're going to talk about that a little bit. So here's a case. So we'd have two templates here. You'd also use this template, either one actually, to make the full sheet that becomes the backer. So here you see this fourth step is with all 3 layers put together, and you get that feeling of a panel door. And then this modeler, and you're actually going to be seeing a little bit more from this modeler later, then use strip wood to actually put the door frame on there. So very detailed. but the whole thing really came down from these two templates so you could duplicate this as many times as you need them. I wanted to talk a little bit about cumulative offset. Very important when, and really this just applies to cutting. I took this picture this morning in the shop. I just grabbed a couple pieces of plywood. And you notice I'm making a pencil line here so that I can trim this longer piece to be the same size as the shorter piece that's in my right hand. If you recall back, I think it was week 3 or 4, we talked about scale thicknesses, and even a 0.5 millimeter pencil lead in scale, in end scale, is about 1.5 inches. So what we want to do whenever you're marking out, if I cut, mark this and I cut it out, and I'm going to get pretty close to, remember, you want to cut the pencil line off. You don't want to cut to the pencil line. You want to cut through the pencil line. But even so, if I'm off even a little bit, and now I use this new piece to cut the third piece, and we keep going on, you could get to, if let's, for argument's sake, if you had 20 pieces, and this doesn't matter whether I'm using plywood, it could be balsa or any veneer, you can be way off. So you always want to go back to the original piece. And that's why I say make an extra, label it as template, label it, keep it separate, but always go back to that to do your cutting. Now, hopefully if you have, a chopper, or you, have the Ultimation cutter, are you using a stop? And the stop is going to do that for you on one of those devices. But if you are freehanding, marking, and freehand cutting, you definitely want to just have a piece that you return to every time you cut something, because that's what's going to keep your cuts, your lengths accurate. Jigs and fixtures, again, just keeping it kind of real simple. A jig or fixture is a device used to hold and align a component or structure while it's being fabricated or assembled. There are ready-made jigs and fixtures that I'm sure you've all seen. The Micromark magnetic gluing jig is one that's out there. I have one. I use them. Way back in week 3, I think we talked about alternative sources. I keep a piece of sheet metal underneath a cutting pad, and I can use magnets right on that to align stuff and keep things in place. Turnout jigs and other track laying jigs from Fast Track. So there's plenty of jigs out there, tie spacing jigs from Tyrac here. So they're out there. Here's a trestle jig from Black Bear down in Texas. There's many available, and typically you're going to find them for standard assemblies, things that are used a lot in the hobby. This is one that I keep this around. I've built several things from ITLA. That's Nick's company up in Canada. And this is his staircase assembly jig. He has this in N scale and HO scale. It's just phenomenal, saves so much time. Basically, it holds the stair runners perpendicular to the surface, and all you have to do is lay in the treads. So really nice. This is an interesting little company, ABR. I don't know if anybody's heard of these guys. They're out of New Zealand. And I'll actually click real quick over to their website. Interesting folks, they've got some neat stuff, but this is basically down here in their railway tools, jigs and stuff. They do price things in US dollars, and they say that they ship within like 3 days. So here's how they use these. I'm going to show you a little picture. These are especially useful if you're doing cardstock modeling or something like that. So you see how all these little jigs are holding walls at right angles and keeping things in alignment. They're neat little stuff. You get about a dozen of them for $20 or something. So just something to keep in mind is this ABR models. So we'll come back to that. Micromark, if you need to do curves, in wood, they have this plank forming jig. It's kind of neat out there. And then you make your own jigs. So use materials that suit the assembly method, right? This is not mine. I found this, watched a video and borrowed this. Pattern the jig after researching or fabricating a prototype. So this is just a very simple rail fence. Made the prototype and then transferred some line, did some measuring, transferred lines over, and you could see just use some styrene scraps that glued down to a styrene base. And basically now all he has to do is lay in the rails, lay in the posts, glue everything together, and you can actually step down. So you could build, this is 32 feet in scale, HO scale, but you could actually build a 60-foot fence, just step down, keep moving it down the jig. So it's as simple as that. You don't have to, like I say, you don't need a machine shop or anything like that. If you recall, about a year ago, I did a presentation on my elevated railway. One of the things that I have are bent conduits, and you can see here some examples. I just used some plastic tube and to bend them, and I used some scrap wood and a post. This is just actually this is a standoff from a TV mount, and I just screwed two pieces of wood together so I would have a gap the same thickness as my tubing. The radius is set by the diameter of this post here, and using a heat gun, you have to stuff a wire down in the tubing so that it won't collapse when you bend it. But just using a heat gun, you can make these pieces. Once you get to your 90-degree bend, I would just clamp a square, hold it till it cooled off. So again, this is made out of scrap, but it was a jig that I think I have 15 of them on the layout, and every radius of the bend is identical because I wanted it to look prototypical. So again, just a real simple jig. From that same presentation, I had talked about building a roof. This is an ITLA kit for an elevated railroad. So their kit came with flat roofs, but the prototypes roofs were, have a peak to them. So what I did was I fortunately have a table saw. I was able to make up just some stock that matched a pitch that I wanted in the roof. Was able to then just transfer over, just using a bevel gauge, transfer over the angles that you see here, the interior angle at this joint and the exterior angle at that, and was able to transfer that over and make up these little jigs that help me assemble these roof pieces. And then here's what the finished piece came out like. Very simple, really incredibly inexpensive to do. So if you just analyze each project as you go and, just look for simple ways that you can repeat stuff, it'll just make life so much easier for you. So that's kind of, like I say, we could get into a lot of detail on specialized situations, but everyone is going to be different. So just think it through, look at the prototype, figure out how the best way is that you can build more than one of them easily. Tool of the week, speaking of this, is just one of the things that's really helpful if you're going to do this stuff is a technical measuring set. I'm just calling that because that's what Harbor Freight calls it. $9. You get a whole mess of calipers, interior, exterior. These are great. Depth gauge, micrometer, and doesn't matter how accurate this is because you're just using it to copy dimensions. And this whole thing is $9. So good to have these tools around so that you can transfer dimensions accurately. And here it is again, just a little larger. I got two neat websites tonight. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this, Arm Ballast. I actually saw these guys from an article on MRH. Just really cool. And a wide variety of real rock ballast. So these aren't nutshells or anything like that. This is actually rock. And they're great. The prices seem to be pretty good. And he does a lot of modeling examples. You get if you sign up on their website. You'll get a lot of examples. So I do recommend that. It's a interesting site to look at. Coming back, the Bonus Neat website, and this is kind of weird because the guy's name is David Neat. I came across this a couple weeks ago, and I've been saving it up. So this is David Neat on WordPress. He's from Great Britain. And as far as it's not an active blog anymore. This is the last post that I see from 2021. But this guy was a commercial model maker. He did models for movies. You just look at some of the work that he's done. It's absolutely spectacular. He does architectural models. Here's some of the movie stuff that he's done. But what's really neat here is he has all these little lessons over here. So all this stuff, working with polyurethane resin, polymer modified plaster. And he's very basic, his descriptions are great. He goes through things from top to bottom and it just gives you summaries and how to work with them and stuff like that. So it's just a really good read, and it's just such a good resource that I found just for exploring some things. Talks about different paint techniques, as you see here. So I just really do recommend that. Look back up on YouTube to get this, davidneat.wordpress.com. Just some great stuff that I've found on that site. So again, any tools or topics, I've gotten a few suggestions. Thank you very much. Next week will be the last week of this season. We'll be off for the summer and then back in the fall. Please email me at bob.davidson@newtracksmodeling.com. And next week in our final episode, we'll be looking at theatrical scene painting tricks for model makers. These are some of the techniques that we used in the scene shop from union painters that I've had the pleasure of working with through the years. And we'll explore some of those things next week. Any questions about tonight's episode? They're stunned. They're absolutely stunned, Jim.
You just do it too well, Bob. You answer everybody's questions before they come up.
Well, thank you. We'll see
Thank
you
you.
next week.
Thank you so much. Look forward to next week.